Hello and welcome to the Stamperia Coffee and Chocolate mini album tutorial series designed for Scrap and Create. If you are just joining the series, all of these products that I'm using here are linked in the description box below to the Scrap and Create website, where you can just click on those products to follow along. In this tutorial, we're going to begin working on page 3. So I have page 3 here in front of me. The first thing I did was place some magnets. So for this first one, on the first flap, this magnet is about 5/8 of an inch from that edge. I've placed the second magnet and closed this to place the magnet on the top of the second flap. Now I have another set of magnets here, and this one is also 5/8 of an inch from this edge. So I place a second magnet there and then close this to place my magnets. I'm going to place my little burlap pools on each of these. So I've got 2 of these that are cut to 1 inch, and I'm going to start here. I'm just going to turn my paper this direction, and I will add my adhesive to the side right next to my magnet. Then I'll place my burlap piece here so the ends are in that adhesive. Flipping this one closed, I'll add my adhesive to the top of the flap. Curl this around and place the ends in the adhesive. Same thing for this other flap. I'm going to start on the inside with my adhesive next to my magnet. Place the ends in the adhesive. Close the flap and then apply my adhesive to the front. Flip this over. Make sure all those ends tucked into that adhesive. The first piece that I cut measures 5 1/4 by 6 1/4. This is from the 8x8 paper, and I have pieces cut from it. I'll show you as much as I can. So it looks like this. It had a coffee cup and it had a coffee pot on it. So I cut from the bottom left corner, so up 6 1/4 over 5 1/4. Then I used my corner rounder on my right corners and inked my edges. This piece is going to go here on the front of this flap. Then from my 12 by 12 paper, it looks like this. From the bottom left corner, I cut this piece, and it measures 5 inches by 7 1/4 inches. Used the corner rounder on the 2 right-hand corners, inked my edges. This one is going to go here on this front part. Then coming back to this paper, I cut this from the right-hand side. This piece measures 7/8 of an inch by 7 1/4. And then I used my envelope punch board to notch that and inked my edges. Then this piece is 1 inch. It was right next to that, so it's going to be a continuous pattern, 1 inch by 7 1/4. And I'm going to place this one right here so that this side is up against the edge of this flap. So you have that continuous pattern there that meets this pattern. It's a little bit off, but you don't notice it. So that is what I'm going to do for these flaps. Then I'll come back, we'll open the flaps up, and we'll start decorating the rest of the page. Once all of my papers are on, I'm going to open all the way up to here. And from my 12 by 12 chocolate paper, I have cut a piece that measures 5 3/4 by 7 1/4. I'm going to place this here. Then I'm going to apply adhesive to these edges and adhere this down so that this is a tuck spot or a side pocket. From this 12 by 12 paper, I cut this piece first to 5 1/4 by 6 1/4. Then I used my corner rounder on the 2 left-hand corners and inked my edges, and I'm going to place this piece here to cover this flap. Then from here, I've cut a piece to 1 3/4 by 7 1/4. I used my corner rounder on the 2 left edges, inked those edges, and I'm going to apply this here to the front of this pocket. From this 12 by 12 paper, I've cut one piece to 5 1/8 by 7 1/4. I'm going to place this here on this section. Then from my collectibles paper, I have this. It was one of the pieces that I cut off of the strips whenever we cut the pieces earlier. And I've cut this down to 5 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to adhere this down here to the bottom of the page just to give that a little bit of decoration since that paper is so plain. Once this is on, I'm going to go ahead and fold this up and open to this side. Now from the 12 by 12 paper, I cut a piece to 10 inches by 7 1/4. Then I've cut this into 2 5-inch pieces. This one I've cut the corners using the corner rounder on the left side, inked my edges. I'm going to place this here and I'm going to place this here. Now I'm going to leave these plain for now and then we'll come back in later and add some of the cut aparts to decorate those. Once these are covered, I'm going to go ahead and close that. I am going to come back in here later and I will add a photo mat to that pocket. For now, I'm going to flip this over and we will start decorating the back side of the page. Before we start decorating the back side, I've decided I'm going to add a closure band because of the way this page is. If I were to add a magnet, it wouldn't work right. So I've cut one piece that measures 6 3/4 by 1 3/4. I scored this at 1/2 inch on the 6 3/4 inch side, and then I used my corner rounder on the left 2 corners. And I went ahead and inked my edges. And I'm going to be placing this here in the center of my page. So first I'm just going to mark off where this needs to go. And then when I place this one on the page, I'm going to place my adhesive on the 1/2 inch tab. But I'm actually going to be closing this flap when I place it. So first I'm just going to place this here so that the score line is off the edge of the page, but then I'm going to close that flap first to make sure that it has enough room to close, because if I don't do this and I go to close this, then that flap could start to pucker. So once I have that on, I can go ahead and make sure that I adhere this down really well. Once I have my closure on, I'm going to go ahead and add a magnet, and this is about 1 inch from the edge. And then I will take my coordinating magnet, make sure my flaps are all closed, and place that on the page so that it's on the right spot for my other flap. I did also go ahead and round these 2 corners with my corner rounder. I did forget to do that just like on the last page. So I rounded these 2 right-hand corners and made sure to ink my edges. When you are watching this tutorial, you will not have any of your papers on your flaps yet, so don't worry about why I have all this on here, but I actually completely forgot and decorated the entire thing before putting my little burlap pull tab on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put mine on. I've lifted my paper up, but you're going to put this on before you have your papers down. So with this closure band, I've just lifted my paper up and then I will adhere it back down. But what you're going to do is just like you have been doing, I want you to go ahead and place your adhesive right on the edge of this closure band. Cut your piece of burlap and we're going to place those ends right in that adhesive. Now, since I have my paper on already, I'm just going to go ahead and apply some adhesive and adhere this down. Don't worry about this. I will come back to this after I get this closure band on and walk you through putting on all those papers. Now I'm going to close this again on this edge here, putting your adhesive all across that center part, and then flipping your burlap over and tucking those ends into that adhesive. Then I'm just going to apply my adhesive to my paper and adhere that back down over top of my burlap. So at this stage, you will have your burlap on and none of the rest of your decorative papers. So we will go ahead and get started, and I will show you how to start decorating this page. From that collectible paper, I did go ahead and cut some pieces. So this one is 1.5 by 6 inches. I did use my corner rounder on my two right-hand corners here and inked my edges because this one is going to go here on the inside of the band. And then this one, I did the same size, so 6 inches by 1.5, and rounded the corners on the left-hand side, inked my edges, and I'm going to place this here on the front of my closure band. From my 12 by 12 coffee bean paper, I've cut a piece to 1.25 by 7.25. I use my envelope punch board here on the left-hand side to punch my corner, and now I'm going to go ahead and cut out the center. So I'm going to place this right on this flap where it needs to go, and just like we've done on previous pieces, I'm going to mark where my flap is. Then I'm going to move this down and mark here on the edge. Now this is going to be a very small cut, so I'm going to go from that mark at the top down to here, and then use my scissors to cut this out. Once I have that piece cut out, I'm going to go ahead and place it here on my flap to make sure that it fits, and it does. So now this is good. Now for here, from my 8 by 8 paper that looks like this, I cut a piece to 4.25 by 6.25. I used my corner rounder on the two right-hand corners, inked my edges, and I'm going to place this here on the front of my flap. Next, we're going to open up on the inside and start over here. So from that coffee bean paper, I have another piece that measures 1.25 by 7.25. I used my envelope punch board to notch on the right-hand side, inked my edges, and I'm going to place this here on this part of my flap. Now for over here, from this 12 by 12 paper, I cut this to 4 1/8 by 6.25, and then I use my corner rounder on the two left-hand corners. I've inked my edges, and I'm going to place this right up against the edge of this page. That's going to give me that 1/4 inch border between these two pieces and all the way around here. I mean an 1/8 of an inch border, not a 1/4 of an inch. So we've got that 1/8 of an inch border around all those pieces. For the fronts of my two flaps, I have these two cards from my 12 by 12 papers. Now I'm going to place this one here and this one here. And from my 12 by 12 coffee paper, I've cut several small pieces. Now these are tiny, so bear with me here. These ones are 1/4 of an inch by 4.25 inches. I did use the corner rounder on two corners. It's very hard to tell. You can just round them if you want to with a pair of scissors, but these are going to go here on this one and here on this one. Then I have two more pieces. These measure 3/8 of an inch by 4.25 inches. And I'm going to place this one on the bottom and this one on the top. Then I have four pieces that measure 1/4 of an inch, and these are the same size as this card here. So these are about 5 5/8 of an inch. So I'm going to place one piece on each side of my card. Now I'm going to lay these on here so that they do look better than this before I adhere them down. You can also curve these edges here if you want that rounded look. I might end up doing that. But I'm going to get these in place first to see if it actually needs it. Now when I go to put my pieces on, I'm going to start with this piece here, this flat piece. Then I'm going to put the curved piece. Then I'll put the 2 side pieces, and then I will place my card. The reason I do that is if anything starts to get narrower, I can always trim that card in the center so it will still fit. Now that my front of my flaps are covered, I'm going to open up. From my 12 by 12 paper that looks like this, I cut 2 pieces that measure 6 1/4 by 4 1/4. Now this first one was in this bottom right hand corner of the page. I'm going to put this on the bottom flap, so I've rounded the 2 corners on the bottom and have inked my edges, and I'm just going to place this here on this flap. Now this one was right next to it, but I'm going to turn this one upside down. Again, I've rounded the top 2 corners and inked those edges, and this is going to go here on the center of this flap. Then coming back inside, from this 12 by 12 paper, I've cut a piece to 9 1/4 by 7 1/4. I used my envelope punch board here on the left hand side, and I've inked my edges. I'm going to place this right here in the center of my page. So this is it for the back of the page, and page 3 is finished for now. In the finishing touches video, we will come back in and add some more decorative elements and things to spruce up the page, but that will come later. If you are just joining the tutorial series, don't forget to click on the description box below for the links to all of the Stamperia Coffee and Chocolate paper that are linked to the Scrap and Create website, so you can purchase all those products and follow along. In the next tutorial, we will begin decorating page 4. So I'll see you in the next tutorial.